Let's go over. So let's break down what you learned last week and then start building on top of it. So what did you pick up from last week?
Okay, so last week, and I've been thinking about this so much. So some big takeaways from last week were the three steps. The first being, is it called informational?
Yep.
And
Information gathering.
yep, they do 80% of the talking. That also takes about 80% of the entire time. Develop a list of 10 to 15 power questions, which I have. I started a list. I have about 7, so I want to run those by
Right.
you.
Right.
Um, and then let's see. Okay, so then when you go to the demonstration phase, it's really going over like, hey, here's what we can do, here's what we have. But I need a little bit more help on how to make that transition and when you know it's time to make that
Yep.
transition.
Yep.
And then the close is always taking notes when you work with them. And then the close is basically restating their things, telling them how you can um better help them or how you can help them. Also staying calm when they yeah, and just really remaining like unfazed.
Yep.
Isolating the objective. We talked about that, which we could definitely revisit again. I had some notes about that,
Yep.
talking about how do you mean versus what do you mean.
Yep.
And that generally it's not about the money. And so being able to, it was really powerful for me when we role played, like, oh, so is it about the money or is it about this?
Yep.
And then isolating um, that piece. So where my mind has been, I'll just kind of roll into and then also making the money piece kind of a run-on sentence.
Yes.
So you bring that in and then but here's how we're going to do that. And here's what people can do. Um, and then these were, as I really thought about that, and it's really about their problem. How are we going to solve their problem?
Yep.
Which the piece I keep reflecting on is like, I feel like we come out like, we can do this and we can
Yeah.
do this and we can, they don't want to know what we can do. It's like, here's my problem. How are you going to solve it?
Yep.
Um, and then things that I are kind of like burning questions in my mind. Um, how to start a cold call,
Yep.
whether it's an email or phone. I have these 3 people who are old connections in my
Yep.
professional life. I want to know like how to reconnect with them. How do you know when you're ready to move to the demo and close the deal part? I've been watching your I followed you on Facebook, so
Oh
you get
yeah.
on and you do these like 1 minute things. So my question for you is, what is your thought process behind those 1 minute education videos?
Yep.
How do you pick content for that? And then we're exploring a couple partnerships. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Okay. So let's start with the cold outreach, cold call, cold email.
First of all, is there anything that I missed? Any big things that you felt
Nope.
like, oh, don't forget about this from last week?
Nope. That's so in fact, as you were saying it in my mind, I was thinking this is great because you are absorbing the entire process because that is the exact process. You brought up each stage, you brought
Okay.
up the percentages of time, you brought up the transition, you brought up isolating the objection. These are all things that are key in order to make sure that you give yourself the best opportunity to be able to sign someone up for what you have, right? And so
Okay.
I think last week we ended with your question was how do we transition, like how do we do cold call, how do we do
Yeah.
out, not how do I get someone to this point,
Right.
right? Okay, so
Because
let
like I'm thinking the people I'm thinking of is like I can go find, say, like these principals and I
yep.
can find their email address. Okay, that's yeah. Go ahead.
Yep. So once you're getting their contact information, number one, when you send them an email,
Yep.
the philosophy between an email and a phone call, and usually I recommend a text before a phone call if you can get their cell numbers. But the philosophy is your only goal is to get them to respond. Okay. So do not try to move too fast through that process. So the mistake to avoid is you reach out an email and you're like, your company name, consulting, and then in the actual email itself is a long list of like, hey, this is what we do, and we help people do this, and we do that. And essentially it's too much, too fast, right? What you
So
want to do.
that's what my, yep. So that's what I did a month ago. And everybody
Yep.
responded because they knew me and they were like, we don't need your services. That's
Yep.
exactly what I did, Greg.
Yep. And that is exactly what everyone does. And when I share the method of what to do when you're doing this, usually I get pushback from that, either that can't possibly work, or why would I do that, or any other objection. But the reality is it works. And so what you have to do, excuse me, is subject line needs to have the first name of whoever you're reaching out to. And the goal, okay, here's the small close you're doing on cold email outreach. Your first close is actually to get them to look at the subject line and then want to even open the email. Okay, that's close number one. Close number two is once they open it, to get them to actually read it and click the reply button. Okay, that's close number two. Now, the easiest way to do that is people do not want to make a large commitment right out the gate. For example, this is why the long email doesn't work on the first touch, because that implies I'm going to make a big commitment, right? It
Mm-hmm.
automatically implies it. So if it's a 2-paragraph thing, it's like, oh, wow, this must be really important. Let me either get back to this one day or never, because I don't want to think about an important conversation right now. Okay. Instead,
Okay.
give them a tiny commitment, a small commitment, something that would make them respond back. And this is where you'll want to do a little bit of testing to see what gives you the best response. But essentially what you want to do is say, like, once they open it, you say, hey, I noticed that you the active principal over at, Sally Joe's high school in Maryland, right? They're going to go, okay, do I know this person? And then this is a very easy question. I could just say yes, right? Now, that's not the exact question you have to use, but it has to be that simple, right? It has to be that simple, and it has to have nothing to do with you. It's something, because think of it. If I go into a conversation and I'm like, hey, so they open the email, and then in the email it says, hey, you might be wondering why I'm sending you this email. My name is Katie, and I run an organization that does this, this. What does that sound like right out the gate?
Oh, they're trying to sell me something.
Okay, and then tell me how much principals love to be sold something.
I would click delete.
Delete,
Yeah.
right?
Because I don't have time to think about something else. I have so much going on right now.
So what you're going to do is you're going to help them demonstrate that they have enough time. You're going to keep it short and concise. Okay? That's the goal. Because once they click reply and respond to you, now you're in business. Okay? Because now that you're actually in a conversation. And your goal each email is to continuously keep everything short and to the point that they need to respond back, where you can go back and forth 3 to 5 times, sometimes less, sometimes more, but typically more, to eventually get them to do a phone call with you. That is the goal. Okay, so that if you think, what is the high level goal of the email? To get them on the phone. And then how do I get them on the phone? Well, I need to get them engaged in a conversation. Well, how do I do that? I ask them very, very small, short, concise questions to get them in the habit of responding back. And I refrain from putting any kind of long-winded sales pitch in the email. That's usually the part that I get the most resistance on from people, is they're like, yeah, but logically it makes sense. Like, wouldn't I want to tell them everything I do before I get them on the phone? And my answer to that is no. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're going to be able to sell what you have to offer much more effectively talking to them on the phone, on a Zoom, or in a person. Because then you're able to start asking the power questions and move them
Right.
into the actual sales
Yeah.
process. Instead of an email, if you're just like, yeah, we cost this much. Yeah, this is what we do. Blah, blah, blah. Then they're like, great. Our budget is available next year. And why don't you reach out to me next year when I know what the budget is? Thank you very much, which is a very polite and indirect way of saying, not interested, get out of here.
Yep. That's pretty much what the responses were. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it's always, yeah. So what people will do is they'll push out the budget. They'll use the budget as the excuse and put it out for a very long time so that you don't reach back out to them, so that they can have a reason to stop talking to you right away and get out of an uncomfortable sales position.
So the $1 million question is then what's that content that's going to hook them?
Well, and that's where we have to test and figure out. And with your background as being a principal, you have to, this is where the research comes in, and you write down a list of questions that you want to test out. Right. So, for example, what would get your attention instantly as a principal?
Well, right now in Minnesota, there's a big thing that's come out, new legislation that's called the READ Act. And all schools are like freaking out about what am I gonna do? How am I gonna solve this? So like I was thinking like looking for a plan to get your teachers to get in compliance with the READ Act.
So here's a different way to say it.
Okay.
So, Katie, as you know, being a principal at whatever school you're at, teachers, we're helping teachers who are freaking out everywhere about following this act. Have you already done your verification? You know, I don't know anything about this act, but that's
Yeah.
what you would do is you realize what we're doing there is we're meeting the customer where the customer's at. The customer right now is fearful. So you meet them with fear. Right? And the reason why you do that is because that's the emotion they're feeling now, and your solution is going to be, see, that what that question does is imply you have a solution to that problem, right? Have you verified everything already?
And don't tell them that we have a solution to the problem at this point.
No. You
Okay.
want to keep it as open as possible, because remember, the only goal of the first touch point is to get them to respond. If you say you have a solution, it's too early. What they're going to do is they're going to sniff it out a mile away and go, oh, this must be like some sales offer that they have, you know, not interested. Make sense?
Yep. But does that sound too like, like, oh, hi, Mr. Smith, just checking in to see if, or just want you to know that we're how I can help schools and I can help you get all your teachers in compliance with the READ Act. Um, are you still looking for support or like, and then
So,
you just say
okay.
sign Katie, COO North Shore Learning.
So here's, okay. What's the feeling that you have right now? You, Katie, right this second, asking me this question.
Like kind of anxiety because I don't know how to say it correctly.
Well, even, okay, even not even how to say it correctly, but like, what's your current emotion about how you're asking me? Like, you see how you're saying, now, does that make sense if I send this out in this way?
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, like I'm getting into like like that's one of my things. I go more into facilitator mode and open-ended, which is a downfall. Like I'm not sounding like confident.
Well, and here's the thing. Our goal with that email is to drive curiosity. That's the goal. Meaning, if I asked you that, that's so like, wait a minute. Okay, she's talking about being verified or whatever. Let me just respond back and see what she means. That's the goal. The goal is for them to kind of, they don't have all the information, so their desire is to respond back to get
Oh,
the
okay,
information.
yes. Yes.
That's the purpose of asking, writing the message in that format, You're actually trying to cause that so that they respond back, so that there's a reason for them to go, Katie, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Because our first goal is to get them to respond. Once again, this is, I always get pushback on this. When I
And
say,
then that's all I do. And then that's all I do. And I just say that and I just sign it my name.
yes, so your goal, so what you're going to do is you're going to test different questions as
Okay.
you're reaching out to see which one gets people to respond. And then once you find that question, then you're going to use that over and over and over again.
Okay. Now, a little bit of a squirrel on this one. Jess said that you had a database or a place where we could find all principals' emails.
Yeah.
Just questions.
I will actually, I'll send you the link to that.
Okay.
Send you the link to that. I think, yeah, that's the goal though, is you're
Okay.
literally what you're trying to do is to
Yeah.
get them to go, wait, what?
Okay. So if I come up with a couple different things, can I send them to you knowing that you're not a content expert, but
Yep.
can I send them to you to take a look at before I send it out?
Yep.
Okay.
And
Cool.
here's the other thing too is, um, don't be afraid to test things. Okay, that's the other thing that I'll tell people. I- If you see an idea, you're like, you know what, this might work. Test it. Here's the false belief that everyone has. You only have one chance, right? Which is not true. You don't only have one chance. You have as many chances as you want to take, because what you can say, number one, when you send an email out, here's the false belief. The false belief is that they even saw the email, right? They may get 1,000 emails a day. They may have never even seen it, right? So that's false belief number one, that they actually even saw the email. False belief number two is that they saw the email and didn't immediately put it in delete mode,
Right.
which means they
Okay.
never even read it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means if they saw it and just immediately put a delete, it's almost as if it never happened.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
If you have
Yep.
that belief as you reach out, then don't worry so much about if I don't do this perfect the first time,
Okay. That's
especially on
good to know.
cold, especially
Okay.
on cold traffic. Like if it's a warm relationship, they probably opened it, right? Like they actually know who you are, and they're like, oh yeah, I know Katie. Well, they probably opened it, so you want to put a little bit more time into that. But when it's
Yeah.
cold,
Yep.
just assume they didn't even see it. Like you send it, they didn't see it. I'll send it again in 3 days.
Okay.
That's how your mindset needs to be, because think about yourself. Like when I look at my email, I'll go, okay, I got that email, I got this email, I got this one, I got that one. And then I'm busy, and before you know, you're getting 20, 30, 40, 50 emails a day. So people
Right.
are just
Right.
scanning. It's kind of like social media, right? You put something up, just because you put it up doesn't mean they saw it the first time, because they're just
Right.
scrolling. They're just
Right.
scrolling to see who
Right.
gets my attention today, right?
Right. So
So,
I've been analyzing this stuff that comes through as sales on social media or whatever. So I saw one this weekend, something that was sponsored or whatever on my Facebook account. It was like something about why you should put dry towels in the dryer with your clothes.
yep,
And I was like, oh, that sounds, I want to know. And
yep.
so I clicked it. And so I read about why to put these dry towels. And the bottom, it's like it went to something else about washing machines. And they were trying to sell something that had nothing to do with
Yep.
these. And I was like, oh, that's genius. I've been
Yes.
like analyzing these
So
things.
that's exactly what you want to do as
Okay.
you're doing this. Pay attention to how other ads hook you in, because
Yeah.
sophisticated, they call them marketers, but really in my mind, it's salespeople. Sophisticated salespeople, and marketers, they know, like, all right, if I'm selling a washer machine, I can't just put a picture of a washer machine and say, hey, need a new dishwasher, or you need a new washing machine, or you need this, buy now. No one is going to do that. Like the percentage
Mhm.
of people that are going to do that is so low, it's almost not worth it. Now, what they did was they led with a problem or potential solution that seems unrelated. Put dry towels in your dryer or washing machine and it'll fix this and it'll change that. And you're okay. So, what is it that people want from a washing machine? Maybe they've identified that someone who buys a washing machine, they want the cleanest clothes in the fastest way possible with the least amount of thinking or something, right? So, they're using the dry towel as a way to describe all that. That's how you do that. And by the
Yeah,
way,
that was
the
pretty
new wash
genius. It got me.
yeah, see? That and that's what it's all about is if we weren't doing this now and doing the coaching, your lens wouldn't be able to figure out that's what they're doing. Initially, you would have looked at it and just thought like, "Okay, they're selling washing machines. Now, why are they telling me about using
Mm-hmm.
dry towel?" But now you can see because if
Mm-hmm.
someone wants that, they just led you through. And what do they do? They're
Mm-hmm.
doing small conversions to the big one, meaning the first one is to get your attention. Well, how do I get your attention? Say something that's like, I've never heard of that. Like the curiosity. They click it,
Mm-hmm.
start reading it. It's giving you this is how to do this is how to do that. And you're wondering, where is this going? And you keep
Right.
little by little, you keep reading the next paragraph, which is another conversion, next paragraph, until you get all the way to the bottom. And then you see, oh, they're selling washing
Mm-hmm.
machines. You know what? I
Mm-hmm.
might actually need one. That's like makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what you witnessed is the same thing I'm telling you to do with cold outreach email.
Okay.
You're figuring out what is the dry towels for you, right?
Yep.
What's the dry towel
Yep.
for the principal that might go, wow, that's interesting. I never heard of that. And they click
Mm-hmm.
it, open it, and then the article, each
Mm-hmm.
paragraph is you starting a conversation and them responding. That's how you view it. You start,
Sure.
they respond. You start a conversation.
Sure.
You do that over and over again.
And then another thing I noticed, so that was good. And then another thing I've noticed is that when I'm watching all these different people ads, nobody is saying like, hey, this workshop is coming up, sign up for it. It's like nobody talks about buy this. Even in yours, it's like, hey, let me just tell you this. Let me just and so it's almost like these tidbits of free content because when I even watched yours last week, I'm like, oh, Greg's telling everybody about these 3 steps.
Yep.
But what I now see on the back end is if I only had those pieces, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And so then I was like, okay, so this was kind of like one of the things I had us develop about like, how do you find student success? You
Yep.
have to have these 3 things. And so it's just more, is that your thinking behind those
Yes.
educational pieces is just to get
Yep.
um awareness and just to sound confident that you know what you want to do? Do people call you off of that stuff?
Yes. That's how we get all of our clients. So, and you see how your thought is like, really? So here's how you view the content piece. Number one, you got to make content that you know your audience wants to solve that problem. That's the first thing, right? You can't just make random content. The second thing is you got to give it away freely.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive. So everyone wants to keep their quote unquote secrets. I don't. I want to share them because I know there's deeper levels to what I'm talking about, right? And then the third thing is you want to make sure that when you're putting these out, your mindset is you're establishing yourself as the expert and you're actually showing people before telling them that you're the best. So let me give you an example. It's the same philosophy as like when you say, if you see someone and they go, Katie, I have the world's best washer machine. And the reason why you should, and now keep this in mind, I haven't showed you anything. I'm just telling you,
Right.
I have the best washing machine in the world. And it is state of the art. And it's this and it's that and it's whatever. Your mind is thinking, yeah, you're just telling me that because you want to sell me something, right? Because everyone is cynical when it comes to sale. Now,
Mm-hmm.
switch the same washing machine, nothing has changed. But instead of me telling you how good it is, I just start showing you stuff. I'm not even saying buy anything. I'm just going, yeah, you know what's crazy? I took this shirt. I couldn't figure out how to get it washed. It never washed well with my other washing machine. I put it in here. This is incredible. It just washed it. I'm still not asking you to buy anything. I did this and I tried this. I washed a whole bucket of clothes and it washed it in 10 seconds. Like this is like the best thing ever. And what I figured out is if I put the detergent in there a little bit before I get this thing rolling, then it tends to wash it even quicker and faster than my old one. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm actually now giving
Yeah,
tips on how to use it, but I'm not asking you to
yeah,
buy anything. What that's
sure.
doing is you get an you get the experience of seeing it work first before you commit, and then you go, you come up to your own conclusion. Hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. I think I want one of those. And then they reach out. So
Cool.
that's what content is. Content is let me just show you and not like gate it so that you have to pay me first to figure out that it could be beneficial to you. Let me just show you it's already beneficial and then you can decide if you would like to do more.
Okay, awesome,
So
awesome.
that's what the purpose of content is. Now this is why I think people struggle with creating content and selling at the same time. The reason is everyone thinks so we all buy off emotion, right? And most people kind of get that. But then when they become the salesperson, they think people should buy off logic. And so they behave that way. So then they immediately go into, yeah, logically, I should just tell you what I have to sell you and tell you it's the best and that you should buy it. Logically, that makes sense, right? Like, why would I waste my
Mhm,
time doing all this other stuff? That doesn't sound
mhm,
like it's logically asking you for money.
sure.
People don't buy that way. People buy
Mhm,
emotionally. And what does that
mhm,
mean? That means I need to show them what it can do. They need to visualize themselves in the experience. They need to get a feeling. The only way I can do that is by showing you, by
mhm,
allowing you to see for yourself what we can do without me telling you you need to buy from me.
mhm,
Because if I
mhm,
tell you need to buy from me, that pretty much eradicates everything. It basically just
mhm,
says like, well, this is just one giant sales pitch, and you're just telling me to sell this, right? It's a counterintuitive move that
mhm,
works, and if you use it and you stay consistent and you don't fall prey to like, I need to be just selling every video, which everybody hates,
mhm.
get better results, and you'll start to attract more people because then what'll happen is one principal will see a piece of your content. Yeah, I've seen you around. Like I've seen some of your stuff, just like how you're
Yep,
mentioning to me. I watched
yeah,
your video last week and it had 3 steps. Make sense? That's
mhm,
exactly what the purpose of that is.
sure, sure.
So
Yep,
you wanna go deep into the, making content that solves the problems. Like, for example, a good piece of content would be, um, here in Minnesota, there's some legislation that just happened. Teachers are freaking out. This is how we've solved it. This is what we do. This is why it worked. This is how to lower your anxiety. This is how to not get scared and be concerned. This is how you're not going to have high teacher turnover. This is how. So you're saying key words in there that they're feeling
yep,
and thinking. So you can drive
mhm,
the emotion. So when they watch it, they then go, hey, you must have the answer to how to solve this. And no one else, your competitors aren't doing this because what I have found is most people are too short-sighted when it comes
mhm,
to what they're doing. They're thinking, what is in it for me? Which is
mhm,
absolute worst way to sell. What's in it for me? What is my return? What is my result? Instead of thinking, how can I serve the client?
right,
I serve them very well and very effectively. I don't need to tell them why they need to work with me because they will just ask to want to work,
sure,
which
sure.
feels better.
Mhm, right.
Does that make sense?
Awesome. Yes, yes.
So this is like a philosophy shift of like how you
Mhm,
need to view everything that you're doing. I
mhm,
promise you, if you start committing to like making content that actually helps principals like now, and you just say, I'm just going to do this forever. This is part of the business machine that I'm going to make. If you do that every, once a week, a couple times a week, every day, whatever cadence you want to do. But if you do that and you work on your outreach and how to get people to respond, and then you get them into the 3-step sales process, you will not have a problem with growing the business. It's just about consistency and optimizing what to say
Mm-hmm.
from start to finish. Because here's another thing. When people say, well, what do I do for follow-up? Let's say I have someone, I talk to them on the phone, they're not sure if they're ready or whatever. What do you do for follow-up? Well, instead of just reaching out saying, you ready to buy now, which is a bad form of follow-up, there's a time that you can ask that, but it's not the second follow-up, right? It's maybe the fourth or fifth. Your second, third, you should be thinking value-based follow-up. Well, what you could do is like, all right, well, if I talk to a principal and they explain to me that they're having trouble with figuring out this legislation, and they had somewhat of an interest, but they just weren't ready yet. Your follow-up next week would be a video you created on like, here's what you can do right now for your school to go in the right direction. And you just give them something, right? And you move on. Number one, that's very unique because no one wants to give anything for free and no one wants to
Right.
take that type of effort. So you automatically stand out. Number two is there's that law of reciprocity, which is, well, she gave me something. I almost feel like I want to give her something back. Well, let me
Mhm.
give her back my time and ask again, what can we do to work together? Right? And that's what you do. You just follow up. Here's another tip that you can use. You just give it away. You literally give it away. Like you do not want to be stingy when it comes to your expertise because no one will ever know you have it if they have to pay you first to get it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So freely give away your expertise so that people can figure out quickly. Because here's what happens. This is what everyone does. I mean, you just actually said earlier that you did this, and we're working together. So when you talk to someone, what they do is typically, okay, I'm not sure who this is. Okay, then it's we're going back and forth. Then it's, oh, I got on a phone call. Then it's, oh, this phone call. This is actually a compelling thing, but I still don't know if I'm ready yet because this is a complete stranger. And so I want to make the most responsible decision and just wait. And so then what do? Hey, thanks a lot, Katie. I'll reach back out to you when I'm ready, blah, blah, blah. And then what they do, they hang up the phone. They go, wow, that was kind of an interesting conversation. Who is this Katie lady? And they go on the internet and they start looking up what company is she with? What does she do? What do they do? And they start the research process, right? You want to make sure if they do that, you have things that they can use to help them buy from you. Make sense?
What is you want to make sure you have things that they can buy from you? Like what do you I didn't get that last
That you
sentence.
have things that they can use, like to
Yep.
research you, that helps them buy from you.
So like are you talking about like adding the social media accounts at the bottom of our email? Or
Any
am
and
I
everything that helps for them to research,
okay.
right? So you've got a YouTube channel, you
Okay.
answers to all the questions. Your website has answers to all the
Okay.
questions
They're gonna go, okay.
because they're
Yep.
going to research you. That's what they're going to do. They're going to
Yeah.
research you as soon as they get off the phone, and they're going to
Ah, gotcha.
they're trying to go. I'm very interested, but the entire world has told me since growing up to have stranger danger and to never trust a stranger. And so
Sure.
I need to make sure that I'm a
Okay.
responsible adult. And so I'm not going to impulsively buy anything today because I'm smarter than a sales rep and I know better, right? That's what they're
Gotcha.
thinking. I know better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, other people make decisions like that, but not me. I'm going to
Yep.
wait 2 or 3 or 4 times and do my due diligence. Well,
Yep.
if you know that as the salesperson, then have that stuff available to help
Mm-hmm.
make the
Mm-hmm.
responsible decision and go, yeah, I looked at your site. I looked at your social media. I saw who you worked with. I called a reference. I called this person, and you check all 5 boxes. So I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
now know, how does this all work?
Mm-hmm. Is it reasonable to think that a part of the work is going to be, so I'm thinking right now, you know, how do we identify those ongoing needs? Like, okay, I've only been out of a principal now a year and a half. Okay. But things have changed. This READ Act has come up, all these, and in schools, much of is driven by legislation, either
Yep.
at the state level or the national level. So where my mind is like, my aha is like, I need to stay on top of Minnesota legislation and national legislation, because that is going to drive where schools go to stay one step
Yes.
ahead of it. Does that make sense? And then
That's
also, once I get out talking to people, they'll be like, oh yeah, well now the new READ Act is coming out. Oh,
yes.
let me go
Okay.
check that.
Okay, you're gonna just dominate, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because the way your mind thinks, you're thinking already how to like execute this. You have a thought process where you're connecting the dots, which is okay. If I need essentially what you're saying, let me translate it in sales language. What you're
Okay.
saying is, I need to always know what's going on that teacher or principals will be either afraid of or enthusiastic about, so that I could use that as my hook to start a conversation. Okay. So there's always the next thing, right? Because
Yep.
teachers, this is not a static position. This is actually dynamic, right? There's new stuff always happening. There,
Yep.
we may have another health issue, or we gotta, everyone needs to get back into school. You know what I mean? Like there's always something, right? Or there's a new act,
Mm-hmm.
new law. And so because of that, you always want to stay on top of that so that you can use that as almost value. You're leading with
Yes.
value by saying, hey, most principals aren't even aware that this new act is coming out in May, and it will significantly impact how schools are going to be run in the state of Minnesota. And so I'm just reaching out to make sure that you're aware of that. Have you heard of this? Question mark. They respond, Katie, what are you talking about? And who are you? And then you go into, so I run this, and basically what we're doing is making sure that principals do not get blindsided by this new legislature that could potentially lose half your staff. I'm just making this as we go, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying, right? So you're inserting pain points in there. So they know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm not trying to uh
Yep.
can you please? And then what'll happen is when you say stuff like that, you're doing it right when they say, can you please tell me more about what you mean? So now
Mm.
they're asking you to give them more information. And then what you do is you resist immediately going for the kill,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
go, oh yeah, this is, and you give it away freely. And then you wait, and then they're gonna say, what about this? And then you go, you know what? Do you have 5 minutes to just hop on a quick phone call sometime, either today or sometime this week? Because there's a couple specific things I want to share with you about your school, because I actually looked it up. Okay, there's a couple things that I'm doing there, right? I'm offering a low time commitment, 5 minutes only. I'm not asking for an hour. Okay. If you say, do you have time for a call?
Hmm.
Let me think about it. If you say, do you have time for a 5 minute call? Yes, I do. After lunch today. I'm asking for the same thing, but one, I'm allowing them to only commit 5 minutes instead of 1 hour. No one has 1 hour in today's world. Everyone has 5 minutes though. So that's
Mm-hmm.
lead with that, right? Then when you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, I have a couple of ideas, this is communicating. I have a strategy customized for you. And all you have to do is agree to a 5 minute phone call, and I will give it to you. Okay. This is the level of building curiosity, building intrigue of your offer, right? This is how you're essentially selling your phone call, by having an intriguing offer, which is I have a few strategies to share with you about your school specifically. That would only take 5 minutes for me to tell you if you've got 5 minutes this week. That creates you're identifying something about my school, and it's only gonna take me 5 minutes. I can do that. Make sense?
Yeah, so then the content you give them on that 5-minute call then is that you go back to your standard thing and then also like here's how it can here's what your school, or are you talking about like you're actually researching each school and coming up with something
So
like very
you research their school
yeah.
right before you call them.
Okay.
Right. So and make sure you actually have actionable steps, right? Like you don't want it to be like a bait and switch. And they're
Yeah,
like, hey,
right, right, right,
you're
right,
giving no
right.
information. Like you want it to be legit. Everything that I'm telling you, you want it to be legit. You want to actually offer these things.
Yeah, yep,
So what you're gonna do is let's say you go on their website and you figure out this, that you go on their Facebook, whatever, wherever you get the information
yep,
gathering. Then when they hop in, they go, hey, Katie, thank you for hopping on this call. I know I told you that I had a couple key strategies, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. So you start with already giving them an out so they know, because subconsciously we're all wondering when we get a call from a stranger, how
yes,
much time is this going to take me? I don't have all day.
yeah,
Tell
yeah,
them quickly as soon as you get on the phone. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to keep this brief and short. Any
yep,
questions you got, just let me know. And you just go.
yep,
What I discovered is there's three things here that may be a benefit to you.
right,
Number one, we're finding that other principals in the area there's a key thing I just said, other principals, which implies I'm working with other people just like you, which also
yep,
implies I'm the expert in this space.
sure,
You go, other principals are currently struggling with this thing, and we've come up with a solution. And here it is. And give them the solution.
mm-hmm,
Hold a weekly meeting with your staff or whatever, or your
yeah,
training teaching team, and to talk about these subjects. We found that that's reducing turnover by 10%. The second thing is make sure that you have a pizza party once a month, like, and then the
yeah,
third thing is make sure that everyone reports on these kind of KPIs that are the most important for keeping staff engaged and having high morale. Okay.
mm-hmm.
So those are just like the three quick things I just kind of wanted to share with you. Do you have any questions or anything in particular about those strategies? And have you tried some of those? Typically, what they'll say is, oh, wow. So why, so what made you think of that solution? Why is that working for other principles? What it does is it starts the conversation. See how I said, I haven't asked you to buy nothing. I haven't asked anything
Yeah,
from you. I just gave you.
yeah, yeah,
And my tone of
yep,
voice is not only am I going to give this to you, but I'm like my tone of voice sounds like I'm ready to leave. So what that
right,
does is it also gives them well, hold on 1 second. So I'm not chasing you, you're chasing me.
right, right. Reverse psychology.
Make sense?
Yeah,
And what you're doing is but you really have to be willing to get off the phone if they're like done. Right? So this isn't um like we're running tricks. What we're doing
right,
is we're trying to see in a more like subtle and respectful way that doesn't increase awkwardness. We're
right,
using these techniques to let people out if they don't really want to be out. But if they do
right,
go, I am kind of interested, they're in control. They're able to
yeah,
tell you, hey, real
yeah,
quick, I want to, okay, they're asking me a question. It's not me pushing myself on them. They're now asking.
right, right. So at what point do you say, so you're in this and they ask these follow-up questions, at this point it's still kind of the informational piece, but at like, so at what point do you, so you can kind of, do you waffle that line between information and demonstration then where it's like, oh yeah, because we work with principals and yep, here's what we did. And then you can go back and let them ask a question. And then you just wait till you feel like the time is right to be like, what? Hey, can I come to your school? Or like, oh yeah, we could do this for
Okay.
you. Or
Okay. So the real question you're asking is how do I transition from being the helpful
yeah,
person to the sales?
yes.
That's
Thank
the,
you.
that's the question you're asking. So this is the challenge everyone faces with the transition, and it shouldn't be scary. This is how you do it. You ask, this is about tone of voice, okay? This is about tone of voice and kind of asking the question in an offhanded way. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is what how you transition. The tone of voice, you keep it as if you don't
It's no
care,
big deal.
no big deal, and you don't care if they take it. Okay?
Okay.
So the tone of voice, the second thing is the question needs to sound offhanded. So instead of me saying, "Katie, do you want me to come to your school tomorrow at 2 p.m.?" That's too scary. I'm being
Yeah,
scary now because now they're like, "Hey, you're trying to push me
sure.
to an appointment." Instead, what you would say is you would say, "You know what, Katie? I would love to be able to work with you guys, and if you ever have any questions or you need any." Do you notice my tone of voice is starting to sound like I'm about to leave? I'm not
Yeah,
about to ask you really anything. It
yeah,
has a subtle tone of like I'm about to go on my next call. If you ever have
yeah.
questions and you need anything, like I'd love to work with, like feel free to let me know if there's anything. And what'll typically happen is they'll go, "Well, how do you work?" You're waiting for that question.
Okay.
How do you work exactly? And then the what how you move forward is you keep the tone very nonchalant, very offhanded. So you would then go, "Well, what we typically do." Okay, so now this language is saying, "I'm not making you do this. I'm just stating what I typically do, and you still have the choice." That language is still subtly communicating you're in control, not me. Well, what we
Mm-hmm.
typically do is we go to school, we set up an appointment, and we'll just assess everything they're doing. We'll see what they're doing. They usually give us a little tour of the school, and they just tell us like some of our challenges, and we just give them a free workshop on what to do. Like we give them actionable steps, and if they want to sign up with us, great. And if they don't, they walk away with valuable information that they can actually use. But either way, we're just there to offer some solutions. So if that's anything you would like to do, so now do you hear my tone of voice? So if
Yeah.
that's anything you would like to do, let me know and then you'll get a feel. They'll be like, well, do you typically do like Thursdays or like what days of the week? Well, it really depends. See, I'm not taking the bait yet. I'm disciplining myself to go, well, it really
Mhm.
depends. Like some people like afternoons and some people like mornings. But we typically customize it to whoever, whatever they ask. And then
Yep.
what they're going to say is, well, can you do like a Thursday, like around noon or something? And then you go, yeah. So would you like to schedule time? Almost like you're surprised. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Would you like to
Sure.
schedule a time? And then yeah, I would. I would like to do Thursday, 2 o'clock. Okay, yeah, let's do it. And then my tone of voice is, yeah, let's do it. Like, cool. I'll go ahead and show up on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And then what do? You act as if the appointment is you asking for money. You do the run-on sentence. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is Tuesday or Thursday at 2 or whatever time. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna come in. So you give them a vision. I'm gonna come in.
Yep.
And we're gonna sit down and ask you a few questions. After I ask you these questions, I'll give you some of my advice, and then yeah, if you need anything, we can go from there. And the purpose of giving them a vision is to reduce their anxiety because no one wants to be blindsided. So if you don't lay out what you're going to do, you will find that people will cancel the appointment out of fear of the unknown.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So you want to give them what will happen, right? So like because remember, you're a stranger to them.
Yeah.
So you have to say, so here's what we're gonna do. Thursday, I'm gonna go into your office. So mentally they can like play this in their head and they can say, this sounds safe, this sounds okay, this sounds fun. I might get some value out of this. Versus, okay, it's an inexperienced
Yeah.
person will just say, I'll see you Thursday at 2. And now that
Sure.
person's left to think, oh man, did I do the right thing? If
Yeah.
letting the stranger come to my place, and am I going to be in an awkward sales environment where now I have to tell this person I don't want this? Why did I do that? And it becomes this thing. And then guess what? For the next 3 or 4 days, they're replaying this over and over again. And now they're finding they're trying to find a reason to get out. What can I
Mm-hmm.
tell her that's not rude, but that
Mm-hmm.
I have to reschedule due to, we have a random staff meeting that just came up, or, we just looked at our budget. We don't really think we could even move forward with somebody.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
responses you're going to get if you don't lay out the vision for them.
Okay. And then at what point though, then, okay, so you go to their school, you do this thing. Like at what point do you move into quote unquote paid
Oh, well, once you get
content?
Yeah, so once
Yeah.
you get there and you're in there face to face, what you do is you're really doing step one, information gathering while you're there.
Okay. Okay. So then you
That-
actually move into those three
so
things.
now you go into, well, tell me some of your problems. This and this. Okay. And here's the thing, you're selling to help. You always are selling to help. You are not tricking or using tactics. That's not what we're doing.
Yep.
Overall philosophy is we are there to give this person a positive experience by seeing us, and we do not want to get that confused with anything else.
Sure.
So you're there selling the help, like you're giving them things to do, like, oh, it sounds like it's like if you're a doctor, someone comes to see you, you're not just like, yeah, just buy my stuff. You're actually gonna say, no, well, are you sleeping enough? Are you
Yeah.
exercising and eating healthy? Are you doing that? You're gonna give them
Right.
things to do.
Sure. Sure.
So
Okay.
that's